Bueno, pues muy buenos días a todas las personas que empiezan a unirse a esta sesión, a este webinar informativo con la Universidad de Glasgow. Yo soy Karen Martínez, soy integrante del equipo de Consejería y Relaciones Internacionales de Colfuturo y el propósito básicamente de esta sesión es brindarles a todos ustedes las herramientas, los datos, la información fundamental si sus planes académicos están encaminados en realizar un posgrado en esta institución académica. Bueno, en adición quiero contarles. Hemos estado desarrollando en este mes de agosto una gran variedad de webinars con las universidades correspondientes al Reino Unido e Irlanda, con las que particularmente Colfuturo tiene convenio. Entonces, la invitación es a que sigan siendo partícipes de estos espacios, de estos eventos. El mes de septiembre tendremos las universidades correspondientes a Australia y a España, entonces los esperamos para que nos acompañen en estos espacios tan importantes. Pues bien, el día de hoy nos acompaña Joe Power. Ella es la responsable de reclutamiento de estudiantes internacionales en la Universidad de Glasgow, precisamente, y nos va a brindar el día de hoy información súper valiosa sobre la institución, temas de oferta académica, financiación, procesos de admisión y muchísimas recomendaciones más para todos ustedes. También quiero recordarles que abordaremos información relativa al convenio que tiene Colfuturo con esta universidad, que particularmente consta de un 20% de descuento en el valor de la matrícula para todos los beneficiarios de Colfuturo. Entonces, pues bueno, ya claro, el objetivo de la sesión, el convenio que se tiene con la Universidad de Glasgow. Les recuerdo que pueden poner todas sus preguntas, observaciones, inquietudes en la caja de Q&A y las vamos a estar respondiendo a lo largo de la sesión. Así que, bueno, sin más preámbulos, le doy la palabra a Joe. Joe, thank you so much for being here today. You can go ahead and start your presentation.
Okay, thank you very much, Karen. And apologies that I'm doing all of this in English. I hope that suits everybody okay. My Spanish is kind of intermediate level, and so if we tried for me to do this in Spanish, it would take a long time. So hopefully I'm only going to be talking at you for about half an hour. I've got some slides for you. I'm going to talk to you just generally about study at Glasgow, the programs that we offer, our Latin American student community as well, and also we'll talk about the city of Glasgow too. So hopefully you'll find it useful. So I'll make a start. So all the way through, I'm going to be showing you lovely pictures of Glasgow with lots of blue skies. But what I can't guarantee is that you get blue skies every day of the week in Scotland or in Glasgow. We do have a little bit of rain, a little bit of grey cloud from time to time as well. So we get lots of different types of weather. And any questions that you have about that, just let me know. So just a little bit about the university to start with. We are an older university. We're classified as an ancient university within the UK and within the world. We were established in 1451. So we're coming up very soon to our 700th anniversary in a couple of decades' time. We're a world top 100 university, so we are consistently ranked in the top 100 for QS and also for the Times Higher Education as well. And we're also very well ranked for sustainability within QS as well. So we're ranked in the world's top 20 for sustainability, which is something that we're very proud of. Sometimes when you're looking at rankings as well, you'll find there are rankings that come through from newspapers in the UK. And so at the moment, we are the Scottish University of the Year, according to the Times. And those newspaper rankings also provide quite useful subject rankings, which can be good if you know what you want to study, but you want to get an idea of where the best universities are for your particular subject area. So on top of that, we are also a member of the Russell Group, which some of you may have heard about before. If you haven't, it's a little bit like the Ivy League for the UK. We're a group of about 23 universities that focus particularly on research. It doesn't mean that we only do research, but it means that we've got some unique research projects going on, and that research will feed into your teaching. So if you were coming to study a master's with us, you would get the benefit of that research through the teaching that you receive, but also the research project that you get to do. It will give you a wide range of choices towards the end of your master's degree when you go and do your research project. So thinking about the size of the university, we are, compared to other universities in the UK, we're quite large. I would call us kind of medium to large compared to other universities in the UK. We have around 43,000 students. and they're coming from over 140 countries overall. So I wanted to mention some of our alumni as well. So you saw that we were established in 1451, so we've been going for quite a long time. And during that time, we have helped to shape the world and change the world in many ways, particularly through the period of the Enlightenment, through the 18th and 19th centuries. So you can see some of our notable alumni going back through the centuries. Adam Smith, who was the founder or the father of modern economics, he also taught at Glasgow as well as being a student at Glasgow. And then also we have Lord Kelvin, and we're celebrating his anniversary this year as well. We have James McCune Smith. He was the first Black American physician to be able to be trained as a doctor. He had to come to Glasgow to do that. He wasn't able to do that in his home country of the US at that time. And then also we have 8 Nobel laureates as well across the board. So very famous alumni going back through time, but also we have famous alumni who are still alive today as well. So we have them in areas like the arts. So we have Emily Sandé, who's a singer-songwriter. And then within politics, we have Humza Yousaf and Nicola Sturgeon. They are the previous 2 First Ministers of Scotland with the SNP party. And also we have Mhairi Black, who is the youngest elected MP in modern history. She was elected while still studying at Glasgow. And then you can see within the arts and with science, we have some very famous names from the areas of astrophysics and also film directors, as well as lots of other creative people who have helped to shape the world as we know it today. I wanted to talk to you for a moment about Latin American students at Glasgow, because although that number, we have around 150 students across Latin America studying with us, we are one of the more popular universities in the UK with Latin America. But obviously, the numbers that all universities get from Latin America are relatively low compared to the numbers that we might get from countries in Asia, for example. But what we do like about Latin American students is they are usually very, very bright and usually add a lot to the classroom. So usually are outgoing and will ask questions of the lecturers, will be engaged in things like critical thinking. And that's something that we really like to see more of. What we also try to do at the beginning of the year when Latin American students come to join us is bring them all together, just have a small social event with them so that they have a chance to find each other, because 150 is not very many out of a total of 40,000+ students. And sometimes it might be that you find on your program that you might be the only Colombian, for example. So we want to make sure that you get the chance to find each other at the beginning of the year so that you can build your Latin American network as well as all the other networks that you will inevitably build when you come to Glasgow. So the majority of students that we get, they do come mainly for science, health, engineering, but also a lot for social sciences and mainly for master's programs. So most of you will be thinking about masters, particularly if you're looking at funding options like COLFUTURO. You can see from the list there that we work with a lot of funding bodies right across the continent of Latin America. But we've worked with COLFUTURO for quite a few years now. And as Karen mentioned, we have a discount which is worth 20% funding. So if you are lucky enough to get COLFUTURO funding, then we will honour that 20% discount, which should give you a nice pot of funding to be able to come and study with us. So thinking now about Scotland, if you're choosing Glasgow, you're also choosing Scotland. And I think that those two things go hand in hand. Glasgow has a lot to offer as a city. It's the largest city within Scotland. But then, of course, within Scotland, you've got loads of opportunities to explore. It's often been voted the most beautiful country in the world. I'm not going to say it has the most beautiful weather, but all of that green space, well, we need lots of rain in order to get that green space. So we get some benefit from it. And I've been to Colombia a few times, and in some ways the weather's kind of similar. When I've gone to Bogota, for example, it's a little bit grey. We get rain showers every now and then. So it's not going to feel too different, maybe a bit colder in the winter. So we have probably sometimes we get to freezing, but not very often. So it's not freezing cold with loads of snow for months. It just gets a little bit colder, like average temperature of about 5 degrees in the winter. And right now we're in the summer and it's about 18 degrees today and the sun is shining. So hopefully that encourages you a little bit. But thinking about what you can do in Scotland, there's obviously loads of outdoor activities. You can get across Scotland quite easily. You can get to famous lochs like Loch Lomond, which is the largest of the famous lakes in Scotland, and you can get there in 40 minutes from Glasgow by train as well. So you don't even necessarily need a car to be able to explore the real wilderness of Scotland. There's some really interesting train routes that go right into the wilderness, and also you have lots of islands to the west of Scotland, which are really accessible from Glasgow as well. So you can almost take a day trip to an island if you want to. So there's loads to do in Scotland. If you like the outdoors, it's fantastic. If you like culture, it's also very good. So Glasgow is a great city for culture, for live music in particular. And then across the way in the east, you've got Edinburgh, which is only an hour away, or more like 50 minutes away by train. So you can explore what all the things that Edinburgh has to offer. Glasgow is a larger city than Edinburgh. Edinburgh is the capital. They're very different cities. They're very close together, but very different. And there's a strong rivalry between the two. But having both of those, access to both cities, could give you everything you need, really, in terms of culture and activities. Whatever you're into will be on offer to you. And also there's a strong history within Scotland. So ancient attractions, but also really interesting architecture within the cities and lots of feats of engineering from going back through the centuries too. So now we're looking at a lovely picture of Glasgow. This is from the River Clyde. This is our main river. That building in the middle is the University of Glasgow with the famous tower. So if you've looked at any kind of pictures of Glasgow, you will have seen that tower before. It's everywhere. And the two kind of space age buildings that you're looking at in the front are two really big music venues. So most of the big names, when they come to do world tours, will come and play at one of these venues in Glasgow. Although I have to say, Taylor Swift, she did come to Scotland, but she chose to go to Edinburgh to do her big tours. But at least she made it to Scotland, and Edinburgh's only, like I said, 50 minutes away. But most of the time, these big venues are populated by really big world names. And so you will get a full range of music activity, whether you want big venues or small venues, because we actually have both to offer as well. Recently, we were voted the world's friendliest city in 2022, which we're quite proud of. If any of you are experts in Scotland, you'll be able to tell that my accent is not Scottish. I'm from England, but luckily I've been accepted so far. I've been here about 8 years, and it's going fine. Basically, we are known for being a friendly city, and I can attest to that as an outsider who arrived here. People who will chat to you in the street if you're looking lost, they will want to help you. And it is particularly a friendly city compared to a lot of other cities around the UK. It's also known for being a cultural and creative centre. I talked to you about the different cultural events that go on. Probably the big thing that we're very proud of is the fact that we have UNESCO City of Music status. So that's something that we're very proud of. The reason we have it is not just for those big music venues, but for the smaller ones that we have, where a lot of new bands and new music will be able to break through onto the scene in Glasgow. In fact, I don't know if this has reached you, but the big news here in the UK today is that Oasis are going to be reforming and relaunching a tour. They're two brothers, they fell out, they've made friends again. And apparently their first gig where they were discovered and hit the big time was in Glasgow at one of our really small venues, which is a very famous venue. So you can get the full range of music experiences in Glasgow. And on top of that, we've been a host city for things like European City of Sport. We've done the cycling championships. Back in 2014, we did the Commonwealth Games, which led to a lot of regeneration within the city of Glasgow, which historically has been a very industrial city. The old industry was shipbuilding. So we've had to completely change and repurpose ourselves as a city and regenerate. And so there's a lot of dynamism within Glasgow, and I would say it's a nice city to be a young student. This picture here is a picture of a street which is right behind the campus at the university. It's called Ashton Lane. So it's just a lot of cafes and bars. There's a cinema there as well. So it's just a really nice place to be out, particularly on a summer evening. But at any time of the year, it's a really friendly place to go out. And it is literally right behind the main engineering building on the campus. So it's located, as the campus is, within the West End of Glasgow. The West End is basically, I guess if you like, it's the kind of the nice part of the city. the posher part of the city, more bourgeois, if you like. So it has a lot of cafes, bars, lots of really good shops, nice restaurants. It has famous museums as well, and also lovely parks and gardens very close to the university itself. So it's a really nice place to be. It's where most students try to live if they can, if they're taking private accommodation, but most of our accommodation is located in the West End as well. So quite a nice neighbourhood feeling within the West End of Glasgow. And then you're only 30 minutes away from the city centre, where there's more on offer, more in the way of shops, more in the way of larger cinemas, larger venues for music, etc. So you've got both to choose from. So now we're still in the West End of Glasgow. We're looking at the university from the air. So you can see how the main building has kind of formed the nucleus of the university. We've got that famous clock tower, and then we also have the quads, which are located around the university too. And then the campus itself has been built out over the years from that site. So this site was built in the 18th century. So it's not as old as the university itself. The university was originally right in the city centre of Glasgow, and then it shifted out to this West End location in the 18th century. And as time has gone on, lots of other buildings have popped up. So, for example, you've got the University Library. That's really quite a modern building, built in the 1980s. And then we have the Fraser Building, which hopefully you can see there. It's blue and green building, which is where all of our student support services are located. And then here we have the James McCune Smith Learning Hub. This picture is not fully up to date, but it does have you have access to lots of learning facilities within that. It's now there and it exists. So it's been there for a couple of years. So we just need to get a more up-to-date aerial view picture. So I wanted to tell you a little bit about the campus. I won't spend too long on this, but we have been expanding our campus, and what we have managed to do is expand it within the space that we already have. And that's a very rare opportunity that we've had. What we've been able to do is pull down a hospital that was within the middle of the campus. It was our teaching hospital as well, but it was an old building, and they rebuilt the hospital on the south side of Glasgow. So that's been pulled down, and we've used that space to expand our own campus within the space that we already have and create more of a modern feel to part of the campus. The interesting thing about our campus is we've got architecture from almost every main age of architecture. So we have Art Deco buildings, we have Gothic, as you can see in the background there, and then we have buildings that have gone up in the last 2 years. So there's a real range of buildings to experience within the campus. This is the James McCune Smith Learning Hub, so opened in April 2021. It's fully functional now. It has our very large lecture theatres, but also has lots of flexible study spaces and opportunities to book rooms for students so that they can interact with each other, work on projects together. So it provides additional space to the traditional library space that you might get, but doesn't necessarily mean you have to be just working on your own and being quiet. We're trying to offer study spaces that are more interactive and help students with what they need to do more these days. This, if you are doing a research degree, or if you're doing research as part of your master's programme, and the final third of your master's programme will normally be a research project, you may get to experience this building. The whole point of this building is to bring different research disciplines together, because they often tend to have big boundaries between them, based on the subject area that they might be coming from. But actually some of the problems that need solving in society do need more of that cross-subject collaboration. So this building is there to help facilitate that. And you're able to use it as a student anyway, but you may get to do research activity there too. And this is our most recent building that has now gone up. It's the Adam Smith Business School Postgraduate Teaching Hub. So it has lots of multidisciplinary teaching spaces and also spaces for our business school and economics students who are located within that area. This is actually an additional campus that we have, this picture here. So this is our Dumfries campus. So we have a few programmes. The majority of our programmes are on the main campus in Glasgow. Dumfries is a smaller town, which is about 2 hours south of Glasgow. So there are opportunities there to study areas that focus in areas like environment and sustainability. So all of our programs in that thematic area are located within this campus. And then additionally, we also have the Garskew campus, which is in Glasgow, and it's really where the veterinary medicine students are located. So it has all the facilities that you would need to study veterinary medicine. It has the small animal hospital as well, which that is used by the public too. Okay, so let's have a look at what we offer at Glasgow in terms of subject areas. Now, we've grouped these into broad subject areas, but actually we've got well over 250, getting close actually to 300 master's programs on offer at Glasgow. And they fit all into these main subject areas. If I could point out, we do pretty much everything, but there are a couple of gaps that we don't offer. So we don't offer architecture. We don't offer chemical engineering, although we offer every other kind of engineering. We also don't offer fine arts. So when we talk about arts, we're talking about arts in the humanities sense. So almost like the academic study of the arts, like history of art, for example, literature, that kind of thing. But we don't offer more of the practical side of arts. Other universities around the city of Glasgow do offer that. We have the Glasgow School of Art, which we are very closely affiliated with, but that's a separate institution that does those kind of more practical arts programs. So one thing I wanted to really point out is that we do have 1-year master's programs, and this is completely normal for the United Kingdom. So we've always done that. It's not that we've tried to compress a longer program into a short space of time, but we do offer 1-year master's, and this can be attractive to students from Colombia and Latin America because you can get your master's quite quickly in the space of 1 year. It makes it quite an intensive experience, particularly depending on which area you're focused on, but you do get a fully accredited master's programme at the end of your time at Glasgow. And the only thing I would say is the fact that it's only 1 year means that it goes very, very quickly. So if you are planning to come away for your master's in the UK, you have to make the most of every week and really organise yourself so that you can have some fun times as well as times studying too. If you are thinking about PhD or a doctorate, these usually last between 3 and 4 years. So if anyone is thinking about PhD, it might be worth flagging or asking a question or making a comment in the chat so that we can make sure that we're covering what you might need to know. This is a picture of one of our very new lecture theatres in the new James McCune Smith building. So this is one of the biggest lecture theatres in the UK, but it can be divided up according to what's needed. For master's students, you may not need to have a lecture theatre this big. It tends to be used by first year undergraduate students who are doing more general programs and are having to maybe have 300 students at once in one lecture. Normally for your master's program, what you'll be doing will be a little bit more specialised. So you might be using smaller lecture theatres or classrooms. So to give you an idea of how the year works, I think most of you are used to the semester system, which is normal in Colombia. So basically your semester 1 starts in September, finishes in December. The next one starts January, finishes in May. And at the end of each semester, you'll have an exam period. So ideally, what's going to happen is you're going to be examined on what you've learned at the end of each semester. On top of that, you will have other assessments that you need to put through. So you may have essays that you need to submit, or you may have practical projects that you need to submit, depending on what you're doing. So class types would consist of larger lectures, and then smaller seminars, classes, so that you can discuss the topic, any confusion that you might have about the topic, question what the lecturer has said. That's all the kinds of things that we look for. This is why we like Latin American students as well, because they are ready to do that, and we like what they bring to the classroom. And then if you're doing anything science related or health related, you may have some laboratory sessions as well, or even some clinical sessions. So thinking about support just now, we do have very good support services on the campus. These are offered by the university as professional services. So anything that you need, you'll be able to access. And that blue and green building that I pointed out earlier on is where you would go. It's a hub for all of our support services. So that list there is not entirely exhaustive. There's other support services that are on offer too, but it's all available as long as you ask for it. And then we also have our international student support team, and they're located in the same building. They offer visa support and immigration advice. They can help you before you arrive in Glasgow as well. And they also organise the International Student Welcome and the Orientation Week in the first week in September. So they make sure that you're feeling welcome and settled once you come to Glasgow. We always organise a a week of activities before your program starts. So we ask students to join us usually in the second week of September, spend that week getting orientated, and then you start your main program after that. Another service that we do offer, and I particularly notice when I go to Colombia, I notice that students ask me about this quite a lot. So I think one of your motivations for doing a master's in the UK is to improve your employability and improve and enhance your career aspirations as well. So we have a very good careers service, and that is available as soon as you start your program. And I can't stress that enough. You should make use of that as soon as you start, because don't leave it till the summer, because quite a few opportunities might be gone by that point. And you've got such a short period of time when you're doing a one-year master's. You just have to get plugged into these services as soon as you can. So it will help you with things like there are masterclasses on how to fill an application form, how to perform at a job interview, how to make a CV that works within the UK, because strangely enough, CVs are different around the world, and how you perform in a job interview is different as well. So recently we've been recruiting a new Latin America officer to be based in Mexico, and that's really interesting for me because we're operating interviews in the UK style, and then we're getting feedback from them that it's not what they're used to. I think it worked okay, but it's interesting to see how culturally there's a lot of differences in these areas. So those kind of masterclasses are very useful for you if you're thinking that you might want to find work after graduate. We have a lot of links with employers, so we have careers fairs, but lots of other ways of getting plugged into employers. And we also have an internship hub where you could have the possibility of finding a shorter internship if you're able to fit that in during your master's program. Remember, you can access these services for up to 2 years after graduation. And there is also the graduate route, which allows you to remain in the UK and work, and you can apply for that particular type of visa once you're studying at Glasgow, and we can help you out with that as well. So that gives you a bit of flexibility if you wanted to stay and get some work experience after graduating. If you want to work while you're studying, it's possible to work up to 20 hours a week according to your visa, but just be careful about pulling the focus away from your studies, because the main thing you're here to do is study. So you want to be careful about working too much. The other thing I would say is if you are trying to get your funding together to study, it's not possible to earn enough as a part-time student working to support all of your living costs. So just be careful about that. It won't pay all of your rent. It will just give you some extra pocket money is usually what it does, and a little bit of work experience. But it might not be, if you're doing it for pocket money, then it might just be working in hospitality or working at the university and helping out with something. So it might not be the kind of work experience you want for your career, but it might give you a little bit of general experience with the community and also a chance to earn a little bit of pocket money as well. So thinking about student life as well. So we have lots of support services which are organised by our students for the students. So we've got support services from the university, we've got them from the student body as well. So we have our Student Representative Council, which is known as the SRC. They offer lots of different societies, depending on the interests that you might have, over 300 of them. Sometimes they relate to the programme that you're studying, but they can relate to anything related to sports, any hobbies, any kind of cultural interests, TV programs, anything at all. And then within that, we have our student unions, which also help to support the needs of students around the country as well as on campus. And also we have our sports association, which has all of those sports societies located within it. Just thinking about sport, we do have good sport facilities at Glasgow. On the main campus, we have the gym facilities. So all of our indoor facilities are located on the main campus. So including the swimming pool, but all of the studios for classes and all of the cardio and training equipment. Then the Glasgow campus, which is about 3 miles away, has all of the outdoor space. So all the sport facilities, tennis courts, etc. So there's a lot of facilities. If you've got a regular sport that you want to play, like football, for example, then you'll be able to do that at Glasgow and do it in a competitive way with other universities if you want to. Okay, so now we're moving into money. So I wanted to give you a quick overview of what the international tuition fees are like at the moment. So remember, this is the fee for 1 year. So it's a one-off fee. It's the fee for this year. so the year that's about to start. Every year it will go up a little bit, and we usually get notice of what the fees are going to be in January. So if you're thinking about coming in 2025, then the fees may go up a little bit from this benchmark that you're looking at now. And they vary a little bit according to what's being offered. So generally speaking, anything that requires laboratory or any consumables, more materials, like anything related to science and engineering or medicine or health, will be a little bit more expensive. And then we also have a few programs like our MBA in the Adam Smith Business School, which is a little bit more expensive as well. So those are the fees. Those are undergraduate fees, so I can skip over those. I wanted to just share some info on cost of living as well. So cost of living has changed a little bit in the UK and around the world in the last couple of years. So what has changed generally is accommodation costs have gone up a little bit. But generally speaking, Glasgow is relatively cheap compared to other parts of the UK, particularly the south of England and especially London. So you won't be shocked to hear that London is a more expensive place to live. So on your accommodation, for example, in London, you might be spending £900 or even £1,000, whereas the cost of accommodation are kept a bit lower in Glasgow. And then other costs tend to stay the same. You wouldn't spend too much on travel because everything's in one campus. So you're not having to travel around the city that much to get to your classes. And of course, everybody's different. So clothes, maybe £73 is way more than you consider spending, or maybe it's just not enough. So everybody's different, but this is an estimate which is based on a student living comfortably. We would say they need £1,300 per month to live comfortably. So of course, then I'm sure you're wondering about scholarships. And of course, we're here with COLFUTURO, who offer very good, very useful funding for Colombian students. We have an agreement with COLFUTURO, so we've had it for quite a while. We give a 20% discount if you are lucky enough to get COLFUTURO funding. Also, we have our own scholarships as well. So it's worth bearing that in mind too. We have quite a generous one, £10,000, and this is aimed at students who are particularly have high grades in their bachelor's degree. We'd normally be looking for something like a minimum of 4 out of 5 for a typical Colombian student. So now what we can do is if you get one of those scholarships at £10,000, you can combine it with COLFUTURO funding. So you can have that instead of the 20% discount. Unfortunately, we can't give you both. I wish we could, but we can only ever give one scholarship per student. So it's an either or. If you get offered the International Leadership Scholarship, you'll take that over the 20% discount, but you'll make a nice package of funding if you are successful as well with COLFUTURO. So it often means that you've got almost everything you need to be able to study with us. Students don't often go for university accommodation. They probably don't feel like they want to live in a dorm with lots of really young students. But what we do with our accommodation is we separate it out. So postgraduates have their own, undergraduates have separate accommodation. So you wouldn't have to share with a bunch of 17-year-olds that have just left home for the first time. So really, it's quite easy to get university accommodation. It's an easy option. It's usually walkable to the campus, maximum 25 minutes, depending on which one you go for. Normally around £650 to £700 per month, which includes everything, so you don't get additional bills. And the setup is usually that you've got your own study bedroom, and then you would have a shared kitchen, and depending on what you want to spend, you would either share bathroom facilities with a few students, or you would get your own ensuite bathroom. So there's different options at different prices, depending on what your preference is. Of course, if you want to live outside of this kind of setup, it's possible, but it's quite difficult because usually if students do that, they have to come to Glasgow and live somewhere temporarily before they then find a place, because to find a place in the private sector, you normally need to be viewing those places. You need to be in Glasgow. So it's quite hard to do that remotely. So this option gives you the chance to just secure accommodation for the year. And you also get the chance to live with a range of other students who aren't necessarily on your programme, but who are all doing master's programmes. So it's worth considering, I think, for that 1 year of study. But if you're really determined you want to live outside of that, it's possible. It's just a little bit more tricky at the beginning of the year to sort it out. Okay, so a little bit now on how to apply, and I promise not, I did say I'd only talk for half an hour, so I'll try to speed up a bit. So basically, all of our applications are on our website. You can apply directly at glasgow.ac.uk. You find the programme you're interested in, and then you can apply to us. Remember that you can apply before receiving your final transcript or diploma. And remember also that the deadline for COLFUTURO is normally in February. So it makes sense to start the application process through the autumn period, and don't feel like you have to have every document ready in order to submit an application. The majority of applications we receive will not have a final transcript, but you'll have your transcript so far for maybe the first 3 years of your degree, and we'll make a judgment on that and decide whether to make you what we would call a conditional offer. I'll say a bit more about that in a moment. If you are a research student, then we have a find a supervisor tool on our website, which can be quite useful. And it is useful to try and contact a potential supervisor before you start applying, because you need to find someone who could work with you on your PhD. And also bear in mind that a few of our programs have an application fee, which is relatively small, but that's done just to manage the volume of applications that we receive in those areas. So I was saying that I want to reiterate again, there may be some documents that you don't have quite ready when you're applying. Those might be your final degree certificate, your transcript. Maybe you haven't taken an English test yet. You will require an English test, but you don't have to have them ready in order to apply. So you can apply without those. We will judge your application based on what you've sent. And if we want to make you an offer, it'll be conditional on your final degree transcript and certificate, and it might be conditional on you scoring a certain amount in English, an IELTS test or a TOEFL, for example. So that's how we usually operate. So it always makes sense to get the application in as soon as you can. Normally these will open in October 24 for September 25 entry. Some of our programs are really popular, so they might have rounds, or phased applications. So just check that on the program webpage. But if you're aiming to apply before Christmas, it just means you're in a good position for all of the funding that's available, including COLFUTURO, and then you've got a better chance of being offered the program that you want, particularly if it's a popular one. These are the documents we normally require with an application. So I will skip over that quite quickly, but we do need all of these final documents before you come to us. But remember, if you haven't got the final degree certificate, we will take your transcript so far, and also an English language certificate. We can wait for that too. So there's more information here just about how to apply on our website. You can see all of our programs. You can search for programs and work out whether we've got the thing that you're looking for. We've also got students that you can chat to about their experience. So that's a live chat system that we have with students. And then any inquiries you have, we have a useful inquiry form where you can try to find out more. But also, I'm going to add, I think I've got my email address there at the end. So if you want to note that down, then you've got me. I'm the main contact for Latin America. We will also soon have a Latin America officer who will be traveling around the region and will be based in Mexico. And I wanted to mention, before I forget, that I will be coming to Colombia in October for the BMI fair, which will be the 5th and 6th of October, I think. And I'll be there at the fair. There'll be a Glasgow stand, and I'll be happy to meet you face to face and answer any questions that you have. But in the meantime, if there are any questions now, I'd be happy to take them.
That's perfect, Joe. Thank you so much for this information. It's absolutely an interesting destination. So now we have some questions for you. We already have some questions through the chat, but you answered all of this in the course of the presentation. But now Julian, asked about the job, and he said, it is feasible to work in Glasgow while pursuing a master's degree, and what is the typical income for a part-time job? I know that you mentioned something about job, but if you can remember us, please.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, so it's possible to get part-time work. Sometimes what students do is maybe work in the city. They might work in a restaurant or a bar or a cafe, or they might work on the campus doing maybe a similar kind of job. You have up to 20 hours a week. You have to be careful with that because it might interfere with your class time. And also a lot of your time will be self-study time. So you need to think of yourself as a full-time student. primarily. A lot of students, what they do is they work for maybe 10 hours a week. And what they can earn doing that is between, maybe if we talk about an hourly rate, it might be between £7 and £10 an hour. So you've got the potential to, if you do 10 hours a week, earn up to £100 a week, which will help you. But remember, even if you earn £100 a week working part-time, that's only going to pay just over half of your accommodation. So it won't give you all your living costs, but it can be a nice experience as well as a way to just increase your funds for living and also having fun, giving the chance to explore Scotland, etc. as well.
That's perfect. Thank you so much, Joe. Well, Camila is asking if it is possible to finish a master degree and continue to a PhD. If so, how common is it, and particularly in physics or mathematics area?
Okay, so could you ask that question again? I don't know if it's written down somewhere. Can I see it?
Yeah, in the Q&A button, maybe
Okay.
you could find this.
Oh, yes, I've got it from Camila. Yes, sorry. Yeah, so to finish a master's degree and continue to PhD, yes, that is more than possible. And it's quite a nice way to go into a PhD, particularly if you find that Glasgow has the areas of research that you're really interested in. Remember that so if you think about the master's program, it's divided into 3 parts. So you've got the 2 semesters of teaching and learning, and then the summer period is when you would do your research project or your dissertation. So really it is 12 months. It's not like a 9-month academic year. So that summer period is your time to do your research project. And during that time, you might think, well, I want to take this further to PhD level. And you may have found the research team that you want already at Glasgow. So that's absolutely ideal. The only slightly tricky part with PhD is funding. It's not very centralized, and funding opportunities within the UK are quite difficult, but they are usually attached to the subject area. So, for example, in mathematics, you might be able to find what we call a studentship that allows an international student to continue on to a PhD. But what I would say is, as a master's student, you're in a great position to potentially find your PhD by being in the same institution, by knowing the academic staff, by thinking, I want that guy to be my supervisor. So you have all of that chance to do that while you're doing your master's. So it's ideal, as long as we have the research areas that you want.
Perfect, Joe. Thank you so much. And well, I know that you mentioned also that admission requirements, we are going to find this in the website. But Julian is asking, what are the ideal IELTS score for applying to a master degree program?
That's a good question. I should have had that really in the slide. So normally speaking, we are asking for 6.5 overall, with no less than 6 in any subtest. Some programs might ask for 7. So these would be programs that might require like clinical expertise or teaching or anything like that, which involves talking and communicating with people in the public. You're probably going to need the 7 in IELTS. We also do accept the TOEFL as well. And I didn't mention the requirements normally for Columbia. If you're doing a GPA out of a maximum of 5, we're usually looking for about 3.8. And then if you have higher than that, like over 4, then you would be considered for one of our scholarships as well. So those are the main requirements. I should have had a slide on that, so thanks for asking.
That's perfect. Thank you so much. And finally, through the social media, we have a question, and is if can students do an internship during the master's program?
Yes, so I mentioned that we have our internship hub. And so the master's program is quite compressed into 1 year, like we said before. So it's quite hard to find space for a big internship, but there are spaces in the holiday periods, like you have a 3-week holiday period at Christmas, a 3-week holiday period in the Easter time, and in the summer period, you've got a bit more flexibility because you're doing your dissertation, but you don't have classes. So there are ways of squeezing in an internship, but it might not be more than, say, a month in duration. But if that suits what you're looking for, then we do have those possibilities, and the Careers Service can help you with that.
Well, Joe, thank you so much. We don't have any more questions, so thank you again for talk about this amazing place, this amazing university. I'm sure that all the experience that University of Glasgow can give to our students will enrich each one of the projects and the academic experiences in each one case. So thank you so much, and I hope to see you in the next opportunity.
Yeah, thank you. And like I said, I will be coming to Bogota in the beginning of October for the BMI fair. So if you are coming to that fair, come and say hello to me on the stand. It'll be nice to
Yeah,
see some friendly
perfect.
faces. Okay,
Yeah,
thanks everyone for listening. Thank you.
thank you so much, Joe.
Okay, thanks a lot then.
A todos nuestros participantes, muchas gracias por su asistencia, por su interés y sus preguntas. Los invitamos, como ya lo había mencionado al inicio de esta sesión, a que estén muy pendientes de nuestra página web y de todos los eventos que continúan a lo largo de este segundo semestre. Muchas gracias.